You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it acceptable to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings.
I'm scratching my head. Performances was just lacked that intensity.
Very discombobulated this morning, as you can tell from the first 5 minutes of the show. But if you're just getting this bit on podcast, we use Microsoft Teams, and in Microsoft Teams there is a document that we use, which is our running order. And for the last, I'd say, 9.5 months, the formatting of it has been off. So run-on lines were impossible. You had to click on the actual line if you wanted to read it. But while I was away, somebody's fixed it, and I'm like, oh, I should go away more often.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
I mean, it's actually really easy to fix. Just nobody bothered their holes to do it, which is kind of one of those indicative signs of bad culture. But now it's been fixed while I was away. So obviously the culture's great.
When you're away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you tell me?
Yeah, it was fixed. Accidentally so, but we fixed it.
Who fixed it?
We came up with the copy and paste job between us and accidentally stumbled into success.
Okay. All right. Well,
all great things are created, really.
Good that you've discovered this. Anyway, I mean, straight in at green, the Microsoft Teams document working. I guarantee you our show is going to be 10% better today than it's ever been that I've been involved in because of this one thing that's happened.
It's pretty minor.
Everyone else is able to adapt. That's interesting.
Yeah. See, older people with technology,
it is tough.
It's tougher.
It is tough.
Tough to adapt.
You do slow down as you go on.
You do.
It's true.
Yeah.
A bit like Novak.
Yeah. We'll all get there someday.
Novak, very, very, very fast. I mean, Todd Woodbridge brings up on the BBC coverage about the toilet break and how transformative it seems to be for Novak Djokovic. In years to come, we're going to be looking back at this and going, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Oh, before and after, somebody will do the speed of serve, the reaction times, and be like, that's very interesting, isn't it? In the middle of a game, you're able to get better. That's a phenomenal achievement. I don't know how he does it. Todd Woodbridge said.
Diet is sensational.
It always has been, yeah. Oh, sorry, it hasn't always been.
2011 he changed
celiac,
gluten free.
Yeah.
To be fair, when you're holding one in, it is a relief to get to the toilet, you know. Happy Monday, folks.
He's lighter, is that what you're saying? That's why it takes 6.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Joey Tribbiani used to act better when he needed to go to the toilet.
Lost a couple of pounds. Right, come on.
Yeah, we'll start in the green. I'll start in the red, I suppose. Since we're speaking of formats, I've obviously forgotten the format of the performance rankings. Monaghan and Derry, quite harshly, I think, in the red. And I'm probably going to pick up a bit of flack for this, but look, they're not really in the red. It's just the fact that they're knocked out of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship after two exciting, I think, semi-finals. There was maybe a little bit of fear last week that from a lot of quarters these two semi-finals would be, to quote Dermot Connolly on Dublin Monaghan in advance, a foregone conclusion. We'll start with Monaghan, I guess. That was the first game on Saturday.
Conor McManus. Let's just do a love song to Conor McManus here. That was
brilliant.
Should they start him? No, he can't last it. If they start him, it's a sign of desperation that they don't think they're going to be in the game with 10 minutes left to go. And then there's a free and the whole world, you're like, who do I want over this free? I want Conor McManus over the free. Straight over. Yeah. They're going to do it. Sensational.
It was a brilliant performance. And to talk about fitness, a 35-year-old, he was brilliant in the second half. When you think the legs will start to go, just a leader.
It's his hip has been the problem over the years, isn't it?
Yeah, he's had hip problems. He's had other injury problems as well. But I guess they've just had to manage him this season. They started him in the Tyrone game. I don't think he started any other game since. I was probably saying they probably shouldn't start him during the week last week. But I totally understood why they did. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20. But it was important to have him on the pitch as a leader. Jack McCarran obviously coming off the bench as well. The fear was probably that Dublin would be out of sight by the 50-55 minute mark, where you'd be bringing subs off the bench. But no, I never any feared that was going to happen.
Do you think McManus will be back in 2024? I asked that purely based on afterwards, surrounded by family. No, maybe he just was. Maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe the family were coming on. They were there. They wanted to commiserate with him. Well, is there something more in that, though?
I met him out on Saturday night in Monaghan and pleaded. I individually approached Conor McManus, Darren Hughes and Carl O'Connell for just chats after
we
the
can
match.
hear it in your voice still.
Yeah. Well, that's to be fair, the voice is actually from shouting in Croke Park.
Yeah, of course it is.
To be fair. But obviously, the Saturday night
shakes as well.
The shakes, yeah. The shakes are from the vapes. Yeah, look, I think every Monaghan fan would love him to go again. Obviously, that decision is going to be his own. I probably don't think he's made up his own mind yet. There's no point rushing into a decision like that. I'd love him to go again. He's still at the top of his game, so I think he could go again. And he suggested in interviews after the match, if I can go again, I will. So I think it's just down to his body. He's not going to make an emotional decision. He's not going to decide, that's me.
Yeah.
But yeah, from Monaghan's perspective, I hope he does. Look, I was absolutely gutted. Look, driving back from Monaghan to Dublin after the weekend, and you see all the best of luck Monaghan signs and the flags out, and it's kind of like seeing the Christmas lights up in January, and it just feels a bit depressing.
It's more heartbreaking because
it is.
I think it's more heartbreaking because you feel now like there was a chance to win the game.
Yeah.
That they were right in it. They did everything correct. They got under Dublin's skin to the point where Scully gets taken off, and nobody thinks, well, that's a bad decision or it's premature. It's like Dublin are a bit rattled here, and they've already played their Kilkenny card, and I don't know. We're going to talk more with Anthony Moyles about this, so if people have views on what happened and why Dublin were able to burn them off in the last 2 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, I will say this, and Desi Farrell pointed this afterwards. I think a lot of the narrative and build-up and punditry around the game last week was lazy, and it was extremely disrespectful towards Monaghan. It was also extremely disrespectful towards Derry. But
hang on. I disagree with that, because if you look back at how Monaghan got hammered in the Ulster Championship, and then in fairness did right the wrongs of the performance, but they were awful in that game in the Ulster Championship, and then it was nip and tuck. Kildare could have beaten them, and no one would have said, oh, Monaghan absolutely should have won that game by 5 or 7 points. That was completely nip and tuck. It's like the 74th minute they win that game. The next game they win again in dramatic circumstances at the end. Whereas what we've seen is Dublin building up to a cruising speed and then absolutely annihilating their opponents in the previous game. So the difference should have been 7 to 9 points in terms of what we expect to see, particularly with this Dublin team back. So I actually think Monaghan outperformed what our expectations would be of that team.
Not for me. I disagree.
I don't think it's lazy to suggest that Dublin were overwhelming favourites, home advantage.
No. Sorry, not
all of their team back.
That's not it at all. There was some. Diarmuid Connolly, for example, said it was a foregone conclusion, the Dublin Monaghan game, which that's lazy and that's disrespectful towards Monaghan, completely disrespectful. And there was other pundits, even Paddy Andrews on the football pod. We had Colin Boyle on this show during the week as well, and it was almost. And Kieran Hughes mentioned this in advance of the game. Desi Farrell himself said this after the game. We heard a lot of the narrative coming into the camp, and we couldn't understand it. This Monaghan team are an excellent team. Yes, Dublin were massive favourites, and any pundit who predicted Dublin to win or said Dublin were massive favourites going into the game, no, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that was lazy. Of course Dublin were favourites. And I said during the week, 7 times out of 10 Dublin win this match. 3 times out of 10 I think Monaghan win. Hopefully it's one of the 3 times out of 10. I just thought foregone conclusion was.
It's really 9 times out of 10 though is actually.
Well, I disagree.
It's even more than that. When you're 6 or 7 to 1, okay, it's obviously maybe 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8 is what the bookmakers expect.
Do you think, honestly, Shane, that Monaghan were unlucky? They hit the post 3 times. They were level after an hour. There was 2 points in it with 2 minutes to go. Or do you think, honestly, that Dublin underperformed a bit in the game?
Dublin probably were a bit nervous as well. There's more the pressure is on them, I guess, as the heavy favourites heading into the match. Dublin hadn't shown, obviously in the second half against Mayo they'd shown a lot, but apart from that, they thrashed Louth and Sligo. I wouldn't read too much into those games. I guess against big opposition.
I think we can get into this later on with Moylesy and later on during the week. But this is the last dance for this Dublin team. This is absolutely the last dance. When you see the age profile of so many of the players, and when everybody has come back this year, this isn't going to be the same Dublin team next year. And I think what Monaghan have done is they've surely shown how badly run things have been in Kildare and Meath over the last decade to not be getting closer to this Dublin team. And I think they've also shown a template for the rest of the country as well, and Derry as well. You just have to make sure that your defensive structure is sound, but then you've got to go for it.
Yeah, follow a game plan. Do you know?
Yeah, let's talk about Derry.
Yeah, Derry. I think Derry fans, Monaghan fans, will be disappointed, but Derry fans, especially considering they had a bit of a lead of a few points at one stage. Their shooting accuracy in the first half, I think they kicked 111 in the first half, only 4 points in the second. They'll be so disappointed with that second half performance. Every single element of it, there was just. I don't really know what went wrong in the second half, and Kerry's intensity certainly ratcheted up a notch, and maybe it was the experience Kerry had from last year, getting over the line in the semi-final against Dublin, beating Galway in the final as well. The old ghosts of last year's semi-final might have crept into Derry's performance in the second half. look, Derry can be really, really proud of the year they've had, but that will be no consolation to the players, management, or fans this morning. They will be kicking themselves, and I think rightly so.
Yeah, well, the difference in Derry's shooting accuracy between each half is stark. Like you touched on it there, but there was 75% shot accuracy in the first half. As you say, scored 111, 16 shots off from 20 attacks. It was 15 shots off from 17 attacks in the second half, but that shooting accuracy went down to 21% from play.
Yeah.
And bear in mind that the vast majority of Derry's 111 in the first half was scored from play. There was a few McGuigan easy frees at the end of the half, but they were stupendous. But in terms of both semi-finals, Shane, is it not a bit of a kind of a depressing outlook that for 60 to 65 minutes Derry and Monaghan stayed with them, but ultimately Kerry and Dublin were able to go up that extra gear whenever they wanted, really?
Yeah, the narrative last week were that these were going to be 2 per semi-finals, and that Monaghan and Derry had absolutely no chance. But exactly, they were both brilliant games to watch, and
football's dead.
But the result,
football's dead. Don't enjoy this. You're not allowed to enjoy it. Football is dead. Who are you to enjoy this game?
Is what people predicted.
I will say on Football is Dead, there was 43,000 people at Croke Park yesterday for an All-Ireland semi-final. That's ridiculous. I know, look, Kerry fans get a bad rap for not travelling, and there was a lot of Derry fans there.
It's the 2 furthest counties away, really.
Yeah.
It's not handy to get from Derry. As we all know, the gerrymandering of the political system means that there's no direct motorway from Derry straight down to Dublin.
It's true.
It's a long legacy of the troubled situation in our island, which hopefully we'll fix at some point. Kerry people have no excuse. I mean, come on, you can just get on the planes. Bad for the environment and all, but that doesn't stop a lot of people.
They'll all be looking to get to the final.
There you go.
No, look, there was big moments. Owen McAvoy had a good game for Derry, I thought. Kieran McFall gets a point on 52 minutes when they hadn't scored in 10, and I thought, okay, maybe, but they just couldn't. They couldn't push on. And obviously the Shane McGuigan free at the end, where he just inadvertently puts it over the bar.
It was mad. You could see him trying to calculate how am I going to do this. And we talked pre-show about how often do they train for this scenario.
Yeah.
In training, it's interesting. Obviously it's impossible to replicate, but you do try.
Well, I think
but he's going against everything that he's ever taught himself in terms of shooting frees. Where am I going to put this into a certain area that it gives my forwards a chance to punch it in?
Yeah,
a little bit like offside. I no longer fully understand square ball. Why the square ball? I saw somebody saying, "Oh, take the short free and then remove the square ball element from the whole thing." I'm like, is it still not square ball? Anyway, maybe a referee can join the comments. youtube.com/off the ball. Carol Kane is pointing out the free that was given to Stephen O'Brien on 68 minutes when I think the free is given for a lunge which misses. O'Brien stumbles to avoid it, but it's like a tackle with your feet, which you're not really allowed to do.
Yeah.
Derry are 2 points clear at this point. There's 65 minutes on the clock, and it's a handy free from the 21, which gets kicked over, and then obviously Kerry put the press on the kick out, and the entire game switches from that point. Now, that's not to say Kerry weren't already coming. They were coming, they were creating chances, but it is interesting.
Was Shane McGuigan targeted by Kerry players?
It's just a coincidence that the best player on the opposition gets repeatedly hit by different people over the course of a 15-20 minute period. It's just coincidence. Tyrone never did this. Never, ever did this. The great teams have never. The Dubs never do this ever. It's purely coincidence that the best attacking threat on the opposition gets repeatedly hit around the head, chest, neck, balls. Just generally gets hit for about 15-minute period by a load of different. It's just purely coincidence in Gaelic football that the best players attract the most attention. That's all. Colin, there's no conspiracy here. It's nothing we need to see.
I know that Derry are in the red, right? But there was a lot of brilliant performances. There McKinless, Brendan Rodgers.
They were absolutely. Brendan Rodgers' performance was absolutely sensational, and McGuigan for all the punishment that he took in that first half. I do think it did have an impact. I think that the Shane Walsh goalkeeper coming out and DDT
Ryan,
Ryan, and then
that was unbelievable.
And then kicking the flag afterwards.
He flattened him
because that's a big swing. That is actually it's a free the other way and potentially booking for the goalkeeper, and not given. And then he kicks the point and is like, okay.
Oren Lynch could be the shoot. I don't know. Is he the All-Star goalkeeper at this point?
Most unusual point I've seen in a while. Actually,
old school 1980s David Beggy. Or was it Gillick? Was it PJ Gillick? Was it David Beggy? Moisey will tell us. the only thing is that he got blocked down twice or 3 times in the second half when the shots were there. Stephen O'Brien had at least one of the blocks and somebody else had another one, and you're like, oof.
You kind of telegraphed the shot a bit much.
Yeah,
like,
well, it just took ages over it.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a goalkeeper lining up a kick out or a free kick, and actually the opposition are allowed to tackle you here. So, yeah, sorry, mixed up my chains there. Go on.
Yeah, which was just one of those things. Like a lot of good Derry performances, but we'll move on. I think because there's no point dwelling. I think too much.
No point dwelling. Let's leave it aside.
Well, look, some of the comments are pissing me off already in the YouTube this morning. I have to say, I'm sick of reading some of this shit.
Brilliant.
Don't worry.
I'll vet them. Don't worry. I'll send you through the best.
Some of the absolute crap that I'm reading in front of me this morning. Like,
don't worry. You can move on
read
to
them there. I'll read them to you.
You can move on to another sport there to distract yourself temporarily.
Right, I'll move on. Pissed off this morning.
We will go back though.
Sorry, but fair play to the Dubs and fair play to Kerry, of course. We'll get back to them. The Ireland under-20s, or we should mention Sexton news, I guess, first. Johnny Sexton cleared to play in the World Cup. The EPCR ban covering the warm-up games only.
Yeah, this isn't in the red, actually. This is just we've no space in the green, right? Like,
I was saying beforehand, I was like, it probably should be amber because it's only 3 games. He doesn't miss the World Cup, but his Aviva farewell is gone. True. And he also shouldn't have got himself into this situation in the first place. So he is in red.
That's true. However, one of the London papers, City AM, were like, oh, it's going to be a 24-week ban for Sexton, it's going to be the premature end of his career. I was like, well, that was what they gave to Dylan Hartley, but then everybody knows that Dylan Hartley and Johnny Sexton are not the same people. You know, there's like one has a track record of being in trouble and the other has no track record of being in trouble. And also World Player of the Year. There's like, you know, the England captain Alan Shearer literally kicked Neil Lennon in the head. And his England captain was like, I'm going to retire from international football if you punish me for this. And it didn't happen. And I'm not sure, I'm not saying they did anything like that, but the World Rugby does not want Johnny Sexton not playing in the World Cup. They absolutely want him playing in the World Cup.
That's the point. Sorry, Dermot Keys, I think it was, on Twitter made the point. This is the most GAA ban of all time. This is the GAA 28 game ban where the first game of note is on day 29. Like, clear the best player in the world, or one of the best players in the world, to play in the World Cup. Johnny Sexton is very, very lucky. Like, we're looking at this with green tinted glasses, let's be honest. We're absolutely delighted that he's going to be playing in the World Cup, but like, he is a lucky boy. Like, if this was Owen Farrell, we'd be like, this is outrageous. A 3-game ban, World Cup warm-up games?
No, 3 games is about right. I mean, if it was on Farrell, he would have been banned for being sent off multiple times already. So, again, the track record thing is really important. And I haven't had the opportunity yet to read the recent decision. I'm sure they made excellent points.
Well, the judgment Sexton said something to this effect: it's a disgrace you guys can't get the big decisions right. Probably accompanied by expletives, quote, most likely the F word, brought the sport of rugby union into disrepute.
That sounds a little bit like the defence in the Cantona it's an early bath for you, Mr. Cantona.
I was just thinking about that over the
like,
that's so funny.
It's the South African press had it as a slightly more aggressive sounding.
Yes.
Anyway, look, it's bad. It's bad. Don't do that again, kids. Don't be doing that again.
Basically,
come on.
Learn.
Dahi O'Shaughnessy in the comments is saying that the 20 should be in amber. I'm not sure. It was a right drubbing against France there Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, 50 points to 14 probably says it all. And at half time, you're thinking this game is fairly well in the balance, but the second half was 33-0 in the second half.
We don't have enough ambers. That's the
point.
These two.
That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, Derry Monaghan will be amber otherwise, probably.
That's fair enough, though. But look,
you don't get special prizes for each and semi-finals. You don't know you're going to get back.
Out there. The school of 2016, they also lost the final, and they had James Ryan and Hugo Keenan and Andrew Porter, etc. So you never know.
Yeah, and look,
sorry, I don't think winning the under-20s World Cup is important at all. I think for them producing players and embedding a culture and the style of play is far more important. So win or lose, it's the type of thing that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives, and it'll drive them on. But ultimately, this is a development competition, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's brilliant that they reached the final. It's brilliant that they put in the performances. It's brilliant that they fought back when they had 14 men and were able to get the draw against England. And I mean, I don't think we can mention the under-20s without mentioning the absolute heartbreak that the team has gone through collectively and individually, and for them to have been able to put in the performances, that is absolutely in the green. So like, that's this is just we have too many greens this week.
Yeah, we've a lot of greens. So look, fair play to from beating Australia, beating South Africa, drawing with England. It was a good tournament, and after the Grand Slam as well, a third world title win at under 20 level for France in a row. So yeah, disappointing second half performance for sure, but look, keep the heads high. I think we'll move on to the amber.
Yep.
It was controversial amber as well, possibly Wimbledon.
Well, it was a finals of two halves, if you like, on Saturday.
Wimbledon and dues. What's dues?
That's Denise O'Sullivan, but again, spaces have a limited.
Well, sorry, right, Colm. You could
Do's and don'ts.
do's and don'ts. Yeah, you can maybe explain to us why.
Welcome back, everybody.
Would be in because obviously Alcaraz beating Djokovic is unbelievable. Like that's in the green.
Yeah, look, well, it's starting Saturday. Ons Jabeur, what a year she's had. 3 Grand Slam finals, 3 Grand Slam defeats. If you go back a year, her first one against Selena Rybakina at Wimbledon, she won that first set. So she's never had her at that point in terms of winning Grand Slams, and then she lost that in 3, lost the US Open final to Iga Swiatek. But this one, this past Saturday against Marketa Vondrousova, will live with her forever. And she said afterwards on court it was the hardest defeat of her career. And to lose in straight sets to a player who is good, she's a good player, Vondrousova. She's got to a Grand Slam final already 4 years ago at the French Open, where she lost to Ash Barty. But she's nothing more than good. She's nothing special. And even her route to the final was handy. It was a handy All Ireland.
Are you sure she's not has missed so as a 19-year-old reaches the final of the French Open, and then because of significant wrist injuries falls away, and so is actually at a very high level, and so could well be somebody who reaches, is now
a
she's
member. 24. She's young, but I'm talking about against the likes of her peers. Like Jabeur is the most talented player out there on the female circuit. Iga Swiatek is probably the best player in the world. Arina Sabalenka has the most powerful shot selection in the world. There's so much talent out there on the women's side that Vondrousova, by comparison, I would say falls into the good level. She's very good. But this final is all about Jabeur for the neutral. To be 2-love and 4-2 up in that first set, it was incomprehensible that she would lose that opening set, and she did. And Vondrousova did not have to do anything particularly special.
She just choked.
She totally choked.
Well,
and that's why it was so tough for her. And she was in tears afterwards, which is the least you expect. And her husband, who's part of her team, was also in tears because they knew that this was their chance. This is third time lucky. This is going to be huge for Tunisia and the continent. She's already the most successful female Arab player of all time.
Yeah.
But to win a Grand Slam would have been monumental. And look, she still can. She's still quite young. She's in her late 20s. Her talent knows no bounds. Her shot selection is incredible. But Vondrousova will think to herself, Jesus, I can't believe I got away with that one, in terms of how Jabeur played. Nothing wrong with Vondrousova. She did nothing wrong, and it was a brilliant moment as well, because she does kind of get lost in this, in that when she had championship point, her sister in her box was already crying when she was about to serve for the championship, and the way she won it was great too, with a volley at the net. So it was great for her, but it's all about Jabeur and her reaction, and I hope for her sake and for tennis's sake that she does eventually win a Grand Slam. And she said, I promise I will be back and I will win Wimbledon, which is a great way to end it. So that was Saturday. And then Sunday, yesterday, Carlos Alcaraz finally ends Novak Djokovic's Wimbledon domination. The first time Djokovic has lost on central court since 2013, when he lost the final to Andy Murray. He's only lost at Wimbledon once since, which was to Sam Querrey in a third round on court 1 in 2016. And then in 2017 he pulled out injured halfway through the tournament. And he's won every Wimbledon since then. But the way he did this, considering there's a few stats around this, when Djokovic has won the opening session of Grand Slam, he's won 104 matches in a row doing that. Bear in mind, he was 5-love up in the opening set against Alcaraz yesterday. There was sympathy applause for Alcaraz when he won a game in the first set. Djokovic won that first set 6-1.
Alcaraz had choked.
Totally choked, just like he did in the French Open semi-final a few weeks ago when Djokovic did win that game. The whole match handled.
Choked or just a slow start?
Choked. And he said it himself in the French Open, it was playing Djokovic is so intimidating. And in the first set here, that was definitely still in his head, because Alcaraz wasn't even playing too badly. The opening game took 7 minutes. There was a break point for Alcaraz in the very opening game on Djokovic's serve, but he choked for the rest of that set. And then he said to himself, he said it in the post-match interview on court, it was a great interview actually, Alcaraz, considering his limited English, he was brilliant, he was very funny, and he was saying, I need to improve my game here because this is embarrassing, because people came out to see me today and this is not good. And also bear in mind that Djokovic has won the last 15 tie-breaks in a row. The second set went to a tie-break. Djokovic had set point in that second set to go 2 sets to love up. Imagine how different that match would have been. He probably would have won in straight sets. Instead, after 4 hours and 42 minutes, 15 minutes shorter than the monumental final against Federer in 2019, Alcaraz wins the match. And there's loads of moments in this game, but like in the third set, there was a 26-minute game
at half time.
13 juices.
It was actually at half time in the football.
That was such a nightmare yesterday. I was like, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to watch Derry Kerry and this?
Nothing happened in the entire half time except one of the greatest games in the history. It is the longest game?
Longest game in the final. Yeah. And like to have 13 juices, and I think there were 7 break points in total. And then also, when Alcaraz goes 2 sets to 1 up, Djokovic has a moment in the fourth set like where it could be all over then.
Before or after his toilet break?
After, yeah. So you're allowed, that there is a toilet breaks are allowed, like, but Djokovic took the absolute maximum that you can take 7 minutes.
He brings his bag to the toilet. Does he? Does he bring his bag to the toilet?
No, he just goes.
Are you sure?
He just goes, as far as I know now. He just goes.
All right.
And our own Fergus Murphy from Dublin allowed it to happen, the umpire. And he came back in, and Djokovic won that fourth set, but just about. No, it was 6-3, just about.
In the pantheon of Jake Humphrey's commentary greatness, I would have Andrew Castle right up there alongside, if not ahead of, and maybe the alpha dog in the Jake Humphrey school is Andrew Castle. Like the BBC used to have Boris Becker and John McEnroe, and it didn't matter who was beside them because the two of them would just be. Boris Becker didn't bring very much. He just brought like laughs and giggles and also, you know, I know exactly what this is like. Whereas they've somebody in the BBC is obviously, they've decided they're going to do the poor old Richie Sadler once won a under whatever it was cap. It's like, oh, reached the third round of Queens. It's like, that's Andrew Castle's. That's why he's like, oh, I know exactly what's happening here. Oh, the cork gets a little bit slippy in parts. Like, have you been on it? I mean, maybe in May when the weather's a little bit different, Andrew. Like, he's so terrible.
McEnroe did the women's final on Saturday.
So he's doing the ESPN.
Yeah, he switches over then to the American.
Him and his brother
Patrick,
are doing it for ESPN. Look, you shouldn't be trying to use VPNs to get coverage, but if you were like, Jesus Christ, if somebody wants to, judge, convict me here, but look, I had to watch Andrew Castle on the BBC. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, mitigating circumstances.
Like the guy last week, the judge going, look, lads, I have to fine you, but it's the minimum fine for not paying. It's going to fine you less than the actual cost of the TV license because of all the shit's gone on RTE. If you go in and you go, oh, Andrew Castle was the only, so I had to get the dodgy box so I could watch McEnroe. He's like, no problems. Off you go. Thanks very much. How do I get one of those? Sorry, but the tennis was unbelievable.
Yeah, see, the tennis is unbelievable. Like, I don't think it was the end of the world if the commentary wasn't, because I think the tennis was just so goddamn captivating. Like, the way Alcaraz played in that final set too, like, he saved the break point at the start of the fifth set. Like, again, there was another opportunity for Djokovic to win the match, and there was a great rally at 2-all where Djokovic slips, gets back up, hits a very, very handy backhand back. Anyway, Alcaraz wins the point with a passing backhand, and Djokovic loses his mind and smashes his racket against the net post. And I think if they saw the extent of the damage of the post, he would have been deducted something. Instead, he was given a warning.
But it was a second warning. Why is that not a
warning? That's the protocol.
Well, hang on. So
there's a lot of leeway given. Like,
how many? It's not the protocol. Is a second warning is a point deduction.
No, I think it's 3.
No, I don't think
it's 3.
Well,
anyway, I understood why he only gave him a warning, but that moment just said it all.
The reason I got onto the Andrew Castle thing was they were giving out about the umpire. It was like, timekeeping here. Paddy needs to step up. Essentially, was the undercurrent that I was getting from that, and then he did eventually warn him, and it was perfectly fine.
In the tiebreak, actually,
and Djokovic was like, I can't get the. Are you not? Is the
wind?
Oh, is it because of COVID? Is it because nobody, the ball kid, as Djokovic called him, can't give them his towel? You've got to go and get your towel yourself, and the clock, he says, should start from the time when I get my towel. And he's like, no, sorry, the end of the point, the next point, that's when the clock starts. There's a time.
There's like 25 seconds between points. So there was one point where Djokovic didn't throw the ball up and he just abandoned the whole service motion, but he was gesticulating that it was the wind, because it was actually very windy all game. Like, players were falling, especially Djokovic, and his shots were a bit wayward. But Tim Henry was making the point that you're supposed to at least attempt to throw the ball in the air. So he was given another 25 seconds basically to do it. So Murphy left him off a while, but he fairly eventually said 100%. Time. And that was a tie break. But like, Djokovic, he's had a tempestuous tournament even by his standards. Like against Sinner too, he was called for hindrance. Did you see that on Friday? He was struggling to get to a Sinner shot. got it back, and he did basically huge exhale, this huge noise, and the umpire stopped the match saying hindrance.
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Which is affecting Sinner, but it was extremely harsh, in my opinion. Extremely harsh.
On Djokovic?
Yeah, very harsh.
I hate the sound that Djokovic is.
Well, he won it straight set, so it didn't matter.
But it always, sometimes it sounds like there's a let cord, and you're like, oh, but why are they playing? Oh, it was just one of those two grunting. And I'm thinking, Alcaraz, fair play to you. Grunt back. You just growl back.
There was a point that Alcaraz won the forehand across court, and it was right at the end of the match.
Sublime.
This guy is just fearless. Like, he's 20 years of age, and bear in mind he's now won 2 slams at 20. He won the US Open last year.
Will he be one of these players that at such a young age has no fear because of his relative lack of experience? Like, will he keep this going into his 30s?
I think so. I don't. The fact that he's won 2 slams playing this way, why would you stop it? Why would you stop playing this way? And Djokovic said afterwards, I've never seen one like Alcaraz.
Right.
He has like all the strengths of the three of us, i.e. him, Nadal and Federer, and very little of the weaknesses. The way he won that match, look, I was switching seats watching it at home. I was like, I just can't believe this guy. I get different angles from him, and the way he won it on his first championship point too, and just totally fearless.
Different angles.
Unless you got 3D TV there, Colin, it's the same angle. But anyway, right, let's keep going. We're way behind.
Yeah, way behind. Denise O'Sullivan is also in the amber, we should mention, and we'll touch on this with Kathleen later on in the show. But I guess the injury against Colombia, we hope is not as bad as first feared. I think that seems to be the general
soft tissue
sentiment. So look, it was obviously very concerning. We heard the news on Friday, wasn't it, after the friendly, or Thursday, sorry, with this behind closed doors friendly. But clearly Denise O'Sullivan is an absolute key cog in this Irish machine ahead of the opening game on Thursday morning. So listen, we'll touch on it later, but yeah, I think it's in the amber because it's a bit unsure, but we hope we think it's good news. Yeah.
We're hearing some rumblings that it's good news, so we'll wait and get full confirmation from Kathleen. Let's talk Rory McIlroy, because Rory McIlroy is back. I don't know if everybody got the opportunity to see this in the middle of all the other stuff that was happening, but the wind howled on the last day, and local favourite Robert McIntyre put in an incredible performance. I think he was 5 under on a day when nobody was able to actually shoot anything. And on the way out, Rory started well with the longest drive of the week, and then dropped some shots, and suddenly he was chasing as opposed to being the hunted. And the wind picked up and began to howl even more. And if you get the opportunity, just go back and watch the live coverage if you can of the 18th hole. So on the 17th hole, 16 is a par 5, and you expect Rory to make a birdie. He doesn't make the birdie. It looks like this is the chance gone. And meanwhile, McIntyre makes a birdie to go 1 under, to go 1 ahead. 16. That's 16 the par 5. 17 he stitches it to get a birdie putt on a par 3, and so he's level again. And then on 18 the wind gets up, and he steps up to address the ball on the tee and steps back from it, and you're like, uh-oh. And he steps up again, and the wind picks up again, and he steps back from it again, and he's having a chat with Harry Diamond, and you're like, well, this is not great. Is he bottling on that? And then straight down, perfect, couldn't have placed it any better. And then he's taken his 3-iron out of the bag this week, so he's got a 2-iron and a 4-iron. He says that would have been a perfect 3-iron distance, and he stands over the ball again, and he steps back, and he's like, I'm not going to make this. And then they change the club, and you're like, this is not good. It can't be. Like, Rory McIlroy is at his best when he's like completely in the moment and instinctive, and instead he's like, no, that's not going to work for me. And so takes out the 2-iron, and then hits the best shot he's hit all year, like into an absolute. And by the way, his playing partners are completely melting down beside him as this is happening. Tommy Fleetwood is like hacking, like literally from one side of the rough to the other, back and front, and you're like, and it's taken 25 minutes for them to get there. And then eventually on the green, the third playing partner's name just escapes me at the moment, is like you would be at Crazy Golf, where you're missing from 3 feet, and it's like, would you just all get out of the way? And then Rory stitches the 2-iron and makes the putt, and it's like, oh my god, this is incredible.
It's like Tom Kim.
Like has a 4-putt basically from 2 inches, and goes from 3rd to 6th. But in the middle of it all, McIlroy is just like, no, I'm going to be able to do this, and I'm going to be able to win. Now, the last person to win the Scottish Open and the Open was Mickelson 10 years ago. And it's obviously 9 years since Rory last won, and it's back in Liverpool. And so I don't know, just you're like, it was one of the most impressive things I've seen McIlroy do under the circumstances, because of what was happening, and because on Saturday, everybody, I can't wait to wake up on Monday and Rory McIlroy screwed it again. It's like, yeah, screw
Especially considering like you had the one shot lead going into that final round, and then like the front nine yesterday was I think he had 4 bogeys in that front nine. So all of a sudden you're thinking, is this another not meltdown, but I mean disappointing defeat for Rory McIlroy. Yeah, the 2 hour Rory said himself after the round, like that 2 iron stinger on the 18th was one of the best shots he'll ever hit in his career, and the 5 iron on 17 as well is certainly up there, I think he said as well. Like it was just a brilliant performance, and to do what he did on those last 2 holes, the 2 birdies when he needed them. I mean, look, you'd hope next weekend is that end of this banished curse since 2014.
Yeah.
Shane Lowry also played brilliantly yesterday, by the way, but so we shall see.
Yeah,
Alcaraz won Queen's and then won Wimbledon. This could be Rory winning the Scottish Open and the Open.
Yeah, double it up, and 1.2 million as well.
There.
Also in the green, obviously Dublin and Kerry, but we don't have time to do that now. We're going to do it right after the next ad break. But that was this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings.